Well, picture this. You've gone out for work. Your kids are alone at home and there is no one to supervise them. So they decide to call over a friend. Only that this friend is someone they met online, a complete stranger they've never interacted with in real life. Sounds scary, right? Well, what if I tell you that the chances of this happening are pretty tall? Well, look at the survey. There's a survey which says and asked Indian teenagers if they would meet or have met a stranger in person that they have met online. The figures will shock you. Almost 44% of the children who were surveyed said yes, they've met people online and then met them in person. Yes to the fact that they have or would like to meet someone that they befriended on the internet. Sounds scary, right? But you think that's bad? Then look at these figures. Almost 62% of Indian parents surveyed indicated that their child has experienced a form of online crime. 62%. You know what's the global average? 51%. Yes, India is faring far worse than the global average on this issue. In fact, I have some more figures for you. Well, these are based on a survey of parents with children between the ages of 9 and 17. 10% of the parents surveyed say that their child spends over 6 hours on the internet. 37% of the parents say that their child spends 3 to 6 hours on the internet. And 39% of the parents say that their child spends 1 to 3 hours on the internet daily. To sum it up, 47% of the urban Indian parents say that their children aged between 8 to 17 years spend an average of 3 hours or more each day on social media. So the question is this even benefiting the children? Are they learning something from their time online? Well, it doesn't appear so, because the same parents who were surveyed also blame internet addiction for their child's what they call antisocial behavior. Addiction to social media, OTT platforms, online gaming and watching reels. They say it's harming their child. The same parents who gave their child those cell phones, those iPads, say their children are being harmed. 58% of them have said that it's causing aggressive behavior in their child. 49% said it's making their child more impatient in life. 49% say that it's making their child lethargic. 42% said that their children are depressed and 30% said that the internet is making their child hyperactive. What does this data tell you? That the internet, especially social media, is doing more harm than good, it appears, to social kids. It's distracting them as per the parents. Parents say that it's disrupting their daily life, exposing them to online predators, even amplifying pre-existing health conditions. So how do we tackle this menace? How do we protect our children? How do we safeguard their future? Well, we can perhaps take a cue from Australia. In fact, just look at what it's done. Australia has announced a law which has now been put into action, prohibiting children under the age of 16 from using social media platforms. The onus to ensure this is going to be on social media platforms themselves. Yes, it's the tech giants who must ensure it. In fact, the likes of Facebook, Instagram and X, well, if they fail to do so, they will have to face penalties. Should India also implement a similar law? But more importantly, will this kind of a social media ban really help the children? Or perhaps place an age limit? It sounds like a bit of a buzzkill to some, I'm sure, especially the teenagers, but at what cost is the question. In fact, we are being joined by American sociologist Dr. Salvatore Babones, who is also living in Sydney from the University of Sydney. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. But Dr. Babone, you must explain to us, because the statistics are pretty startling. 95% of teenagers in India are on social media and 37% have listed, parents have listed OTT platform as their children's favorite pastime. Do you think the kind of a ban that Australia has put in place, for example, is going to help children in ensuring that they have more friends or isolate them further?
It's not clear that it's going to do either. We really don't know much about the effects of a ban like this. The few studies that have been done of taking children off social media have shown mixed effects and no strong results. There really is a very weak research basis for this. And it's a bit strange of the Australian government to be making national policy without really knowing what's going to come of it.
That's very interesting that you've said that, because yes, there have been a lot of communities who've come out, many in the rural areas as well, the LGBTQ as well, who've come out and say that it may push their child over to further isolation. Is that a fear of some of the parents at least? Because they seem to be split up across the world, whether it should be the government ensuring that there are laws like this, or should it be the prerogative of the parents to decide, the same parents who give their children phones and iPads, whether or not their child's social media needs to be restricted? Who takes that call?
Well, look, the truth is, we really just don't know. I mean, if you look at the survey data you cited at the top of the show, you'll see that parents think that social media is making their children hyperactive, and parents believe that social media is making their children lethargic. Well, how can you be both lethargic and hyperactive? These are contradictory answers, and yet parents believe that both is happening. Now, the really strange thing about the Australian legislation is it doesn't allow for any parental autonomy, which is to say that the very parents who gave their children these phones are not being allowed the option to regulate their social media. And that really is a strange feature of the law. After all, if parents wanted their children to have no access to social media, they could just take away their phone. Or if the law were to allow or require parental approval for social media accounts, I think that would be much less controversial. That, okay, you've given your child a smartphone, but it should be up to you, the parent, whether or not the child can get a Facebook account or a Twitter account or a Twitch account. Now, this takes it out of the parent's hands. So the same parent who's given the child the smartphone is not being able to determine what the child can use it for. And that seems like a really strange action on the part of the government.
That's an interesting part that you've pointed out, that it is the same parents who have, of course, allowed these devices to their children. However, parents, and when we speak to many of them, they say that they are unable to control it because their classmates have it, their friends have it, which is why they have had several fights at homes. Even the ones who are not willing to allow their child that kind of screen time, that has led to a lot of friction within families, which is why the government is something that they are looking towards. I know that there has been a movement in India as well, asking the government to ensure that the government steps in because the parents haven't been able to. Would you buy that argument?
Well, that's the ultimate nanny state argument. We joke about the idea of a nanny state, a state that attempts to look after people, but this is the state literally being a nanny for the children. The parents are unable to control the child, so the state will control your child for you. And that just seems like a real overreaction. Now, on the other hand, legislation that required parental approval for social media accounts that could allow, and we now easily have the technology that parents could, with a click of a button on their phones, restrict their children from social media. So it's 8 p.m., time to do homework, just click a button and social media could be turned off. And that could very easily be implemented by social media companies. Frankly, I think they should do it even without being required to do it by the government. But it does seem like quite a bit of government overreach for the government to step in and regulate people's children. That said, this has strong bipartisan support in Australia. It's a Labor government that put it in place, but the Liberal Party, that is the more conservative party in Australia, had pledged to do the very same thing if it had won the most recent election. So this is something that appears to be here to stay, at least for now.
I find it interesting that you talk about the parental controls and checks and balances instead of a complete ban, because in India we have the DPDP Act as well. It has just been put into place. And this one says that if you're a minor, you have to have parental consent. Only then can you have your account. So would you say those kind of restriction, for example, the restrictions that India has, may be the right way forward without being a nanny state?
Well, that's more reasonable, but I think even better would be to give parents the tools they need to manage their children's online presence, so that the only answer is not just take away the phone. That is, if the parents were able to manage their children's media use, that would give more tools to parents. Now, I should be clear, the Australia social media ban does not prevent children from being online. What's more, it doesn't even prevent them from doing the scary things you talked about in your intro about meeting people online. That is, they can go on YouTube. They could theoretically go on dating sites. I mean, obviously, we abhor the idea of a 14-year-old going on a dating site, but certainly
possible.
it must have happened. So it's not protecting them from harm, and it's not protecting them from the brain rot, so to speak, of extra screen time. It's simply preventing them from talking to friends on social networks. And that's actually something that mental health organizations in Australia have expressed concerns about, that it is tending to isolate children from their friends instead of provide that greater interaction with friends that social media does enable. Let's not forget, social media is fundamentally social. And although it is possible for children to meet strangers, overwhelmingly, children are socializing with their own peers and their own friends in school.
Yeah. So this is interesting. So essentially, the jury's out on this. We don't know what the impact of the social media ban in Australia is going to be, and what the outcome of this is going to be in the long term. In the short term, you're absolutely right, as Dr. Babone points out, that it is only going to restrict their presence on social media, still gives them access to the larger, deeper, darker net, as many parents fear. It is only going to be a partial one. But should this ban, should this control be on the side of the parents, or should it come from the state itself? We'll have to wait and see. Let's see if Australia actually sets a template for the rest of the world, or is India's model more viable in that manner? Thank you so much. That's all we could pack in for you here on Decoding Now. Of course, thank you so much, Dr. Babone, for putting into places and decoding every aspect of the social media ban on minors.